My name is Ben. This happened when I was 16 years old. I had just moved to a new town and started at a new high school. Moving is always hard, but starting at a big school in the middle of the year is even harder. I didn't have many friends, so I decided to join the basketball team to meet people. Our coach was very strict. He made us practice for 3 hours every single day. Because I was new, I had to work twice as hard to learn all the plays. One Tuesday, practice ended very late. It was about 7:30 in the evening. Outside, the sun was already gone. The school was very dark and very quiet. All my teammates finished their showers and left. They were talking and laughing as they walked out of the building. I was a bit slow that day. I had lost one of my gym shoes. I had to spend 10 minutes looking for it under the benches. By the time I found it and got my bag ready, the locker room was silent. Even the hum of the big air conditioner had stopped. I was sitting on a long wooden bench, tying my shoes. I was the only person left in the locker room. Or, at least, that is what I thought. Suddenly, I heard a sound. It came from the big gym next door. Thump, thump, thump. It was a very familiar sound. It sounded like a basketball bouncing on the hardwood floor. At first, I wasn't scared. I thought maybe one of my teammates had come back to get some extra shots in. I stood up and walked toward the heavy double doors that led into the gym. I pushed one door open just a little. The gym was pitch black. The big overhead lights were all turned off. The only light in the whole room came from the small yellow glow of the hallway behind me. I squinted my eyes, trying to see into the dark. At the far end of the court, under the basketball hoop, I saw a shape. It was the shape of a person. They were standing perfectly still. They were just a dark shadow against the wall. I couldn't see their face or what they were wearing. "Hey, practice is over. Coach said we have to leave," I yelled. My voice echoed off the high ceiling. The person did not move. They did not say a word. They just stood there, staring at me from the darkness. I felt a weird feeling in my stomach. Something was wrong. Then, a basketball rolled out of the dark. It rolled very slowly across the floor. It kept rolling until it hit my foot and stopped. I looked down at the ball, and my heart skipped a beat. The basketball was covered in wet, thick, black mud. It looked like it had been sitting in a swamp for years. But there was no mud anywhere else in the gym. I looked back up at the person. Very slowly, they started to walk toward me. They didn't run, they just walked. But they moved in a strange, shaky way. Their head was tilted to one side. Their arms were hanging down very long at their sides. I didn't wait to see who it was. I backed out of the gym and let the heavy double door slam shut. I ran back to my locker to grab my backpack. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely pick it up. I just wanted to get to my car and go home. As I grabbed my bag, I heard a loud noise right behind me. Click. The lights in the locker room went out. Now I was in total darkness. I couldn't see my own hands in front of my face. I stood perfectly still. I was too scared to move. And then I heard it. I heard someone breathing. It was a loud, wet, rattling sound. It was very close to me. It sounded like it was coming from inside one of the lockers right behind me. I slowly reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the dark. I pointed the light at the row of lockers. One of the locker doors was slightly open. I saw a hand gripping the edge of the metal door. The hand was very pale and very thin. The skin looked like old paper. The nails were long, broken, and covered in that same black mud. The locker door pushed open all the way with a loud creak. A man crawled out. He was not standing up. He was crawling on his hands and knees. He was wearing a very old-school basketball uniform. It was yellow and purple, colors our school hadn't used 30 years. The man looked up at me and smiled. He had no teeth. His eyes were wide and white with no color in the middle. He started to crawl toward me. He moved his limbs like a giant spider. I screamed. I didn't care how loud I was. I turned and ran as fast as I could. I sprinted out of the locker room and down the long, empty hallway. My footsteps sounded like thunder on the tile floor. I could hear him behind me. I could hear his hands and knees hitting the floor. Slap, slap, slap. He was fast. I reached the front doors of the school and grabbed the handles. I pulled with all my strength. They didn't move. They were locked for the night. I started hitting the glass with my fists. "Help! Someone help me! Let me out!" I screamed. I looked over my shoulder. The man was at the end of the hallway. He was still crawling on the floor, coming toward me. He was moving his head back and forth. He was making a low growling sound in his throat. I was trapped. I looked around for something to break the glass. I saw a heavy trash can nearby. I grabbed it and was about to throw it through the window when a bright light hit the hallway. It was the night janitor. He was walking down the hall from the other side with a big flashlight. "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you hitting the door?" the janitor asked. He sounded angry. I pointed at the floor behind me. "There's a man. He's chasing me. Look!" The janitor shone his big light down the hallway. There was nothing there. The hallway was completely empty. No Spider-Man, no man in an old uniform. "There's no one here, kid," the janitor said. He looked at me like I was crazy. But then he looked down at the floor. His eyes went wide. Right where I said the man was, there was a wet trail of black mud. It led all the way back to the locker room. The janitor didn't say another word. He quickly unlocked the door and let me out. He called the police right away. The police arrived 10 minutes later with dogs. They searched the whole school. They went into the locker room and found the locker where I saw the man. When they looked inside, they found that the metal back of the locker had been cut away. Behind the locker was a small hole in the wall. That hole led to an old basement that had been boarded up for 40 years. The school didn't even know it existed anymore. In that basement, the police found a horrifying scene. There was a bed made of old, moldy gym mats. There were hundreds of photos of students pinned to the walls. Most of the photos were of the basketball team. Some of the photos were of me. They were taken from far away while I was walking to my car or sitting at lunch. The police told me the man was a former student. He had been a star player on the team back in the 1970s. But something had happened to him. He had lost his mind and disappeared years ago. He had moved back into the school. He had been living under the gym floor for a very long time. He knew every hallway. He knew every locker. He knew every student stayed late. They never caught him that night. He had escaped through a vent before the police arrived. But they found his old uniform in the basement.
It was soaked in black mud from the pipes under the school. I quit the basketball team the very next day. I couldn't handle being in that gym anymore. Eventually, I moved to a different school in a different state. But even now, years later, I still have trouble. Whenever I'm in a quiet building and I hear the sound of a ball bouncing, I freeze. I don't think about sports. I don't think about games. I think about the man crawling on the floor. I think about the wet, black mud. And I wonder if he is still living under a floor somewhere, waiting for a student to stay.
My name is Liam. This happened when I was a senior in high school. I was taking a woodshop class. I wanted to build a small wooden table for my mom's birthday. I was very slow at building. The birthday was on a Saturday. It was Friday evening. My teacher told me I could stay until 7 o'clock to finish the table. The woodshop was in the basement of the school. It was a very large room with many tools and machines. The basement was always cold. It smelled like sawdust and old paint. At 6 o'clock, the sun went down. The woodshop windows were small and high up. I was the only person left in the basement. I could hear the wind blowing outside. I was using a sander to make the wood smooth. The machine was very loud. I turned the sander off to check the wood. When the machine stopped, the room became very quiet. Then I heard a sound. It was coming from the lumber storage area. The lumber area was a dark corner where we kept the big pieces of wood. The sound was a soft whistling. Whistle, whistle. It was a happy tune. It sounded like someone was having fun. I thought maybe the janitor was nearby. "Hello? Is someone there?" I asked. The whistling stopped. No one answered. I felt a little bit nervous. I decided to finish my work fast. I went to the back of the room to get some wood glue. As I walked past a big pile of wood, I saw something on the floor. It was a small red toy car. It looked brand new. There were no kids in this school. This was a high school. I picked up the toy car. It felt cold. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise from the other side of the room. Crash! A stack of chairs had fallen over. I ran over to the chairs. They were lying all over the floor. I looked around the room. I saw a door that led to the boiler room. The boiler room was where the big heaters were kept. It was a very dark place. The door was moving. It was opening very slowly. I saw a face looking out from the dark. It was not a man. It was a small boy. He looked about 7 years old. He was wearing a very old school suit. His skin was very white. His eyes were very large and dark. "Hey, kid, what are you doing here?" I asked. The boy did not say anything. He just pointed his finger at me. Then he stepped out of the room. But as he stepped into the light, I saw his feet. He was not walking. He was floating a few inches off the floor. He started to move toward me very fast. He was not whistling anymore. He was making a low, angry growl. I did not wait. I dropped the wood glue and ran for the stairs. I sprinted up to the first floor. I did not look back. I reached the front doors of the school. I pushed them open and ran into the rain. I got into my car and drove away as fast as I could. The next day, I told my teacher what happened. He looked very sad. He told me a story from 30 years ago. A teacher used to bring his young son to school on Friday nights. One night, the boy was playing in the woodshop while the father worked. There was an accident with a heavy shelf of lumber. The boy did not make it. The teacher said that people sometimes hear whistling in the basement, but they never stay long enough to see who is making the sound. I never went back to the woodshop. I bought my mom a gift from the store instead. Now, whenever I see a toy car on the floor, I don't pick it up. I just turn around and walk away. My name is Marcus. This happened when I was a junior in high school. I was not a bad student, but I was always late for class. My principal got tired of it and told me I had to stay for a late detention on a Friday night. I had to stay until 8 o'clock. The teacher in the room was Mr. Harris. He was a nice man, but he was very old and walked very slowly. Around 7 o'clock, Mr. Harris stood up and told me he was going to the front office to get some papers. He told me to stay in my seat and finish my homework. The school was very quiet. Most of the lights in the hallway were turned off to save power. I could hear the heavy rain hitting the glass windows. It was a very lonely feeling to be in that big building all by myself. I sat there for about 10 minutes. Then I heard a sound in the hallway. Squeak, squeak, squeak. It was a very specific sound. It was the sound of the wheels on a heavy cleaning cart. I thought it was just the night janitor doing his job. I didn't think it was strange at first, but then the sound stopped right outside the classroom door. The door opened very slowly. A man walked in. He was wearing a gray janitor's uniform, but I noticed right away that the uniform was much too big for him. The sleeves were rolled up many times, and the pants were dragging on the floor. The man was very tall and very thin. He was holding a mop, but he wasn't really cleaning. He just stood by the door and looked at me. His face was very pale, and his hair was messy. "Is Mr. Harris here?" the man asked. His voice was very deep and scratchy. It sounded like he had a very bad cold. I told him that Mr. Harris would be back soon. I expected the man to leave, but he didn't. He walked to the middle of the room and started to mop the same spot on the floor over and over again. I looked at his hands. They were covered in dark black dirt. He looked like he had been digging in the ground. I felt very uncomfortable. My stomach felt tight. I decided I needed to get away from him. I told him I was going to the bathroom. I grabbed my phone, walked past him, and went into the hallway. I didn't want to go to the bathroom. I wanted to find Mr. Harris. As I walked toward the front of the school, I passed the janitor's closet. The door was open just a few inches. I stopped and looked inside. On the floor of the closet, I saw a man. It was the real janitor, Mr. Miller. He was tied up with heavy tape. His eyes were wide, and he looked terrified. Next to him on the floor was his walkie-talkie. It had been smashed into pieces. My heart started to beat very fast. I realized the man in the classroom was not a janitor. I turned around to run, but the tall man was already standing in the hallway behind me. He wasn't holding the mop anymore. He was holding a large, heavy metal wrench. He started to walk toward me. He was smiling now, but he had no teeth. It was the scariest smile I had ever seen. "Where are you going, Marcus?" he whispered. He knew my name because he had looked at the sign-in sheet on the teacher's desk. I didn't answer him. I sprinted down the hallway as fast as I could. I could hear his heavy boots hitting the floor behind me. He was fast, even though he was thin. I ran toward the front office and burst through the door. Mr. Harris was there. I yelled at him to lock the door. He saw how scared I was and locked it immediately. He called the police right away. We heard the man hit the office door with the wrench. Thud, thud, thud. But the door was thick and he couldn't get in. After a minute, the sounds stopped. When the police arrived, they found the real janitor in the closet and let him go. He was okay, but just very shaken up. But the tall man in the baggy uniform was gone. The police searched the entire school from top to bottom. They eventually found a nest in the attic area above the gym. There was a dirty mattress, some stolen blankets, and a lot of empty food wrappers. The man had been living inside the school for 2 months. He was a stranger who had escaped from a jail in the next town. He had stolen a uniform and was waiting for the building to be empty so he could take over. I never stayed late for detention again. In fact, I made sure I was never late for class for the rest of the year. Now, whenever I am in a building and I hear the sound of a cart squeaking, I don't wait to see who is pushing it. I just leave. Because you never know who is hiding behind that uniform.